This is part 2 of my repaint of Marinette du Painting aka Ladybug. If you didn't see part 1 yet, I recommend to check it before this one. Have fun! Hi, welcome to my lab! Today I'll be continuing work on Marinette and there is a lot to do, so have a seat and take your popcorn. But before I start, I would like to shout out to my demonic 666th subscriber. I was on my toes for a whole week to catch you. Thanks for all of you for this amazing and funny milestone. So, without further ado, let's dive into this madness. When I was working on the outfit, I realized that despite of her double-jointed knees and elbows, she is pretty stiff and her movement is so robotic. Ladybug is known for her acrobatic skills and it would be a shame that I cannot pose her like this, and since I am not going for C-3PO cosplay for her, I decided to do body modifications. As I am doing this voiceover a couple months after finishing them, I am asking myself, what I was thinking.
Wow, what was I thinking?
As you see, I started from marking where the cat should go and then I chop off her left hand. I wanted to put inside a small 1-inch hanger bolt to allow rotation movement. I've seen Hexian doing this in his repaints. However, it didn't work for me. The bit was too long and it was disturbing the movement of shoulder joint. It worked for Hexian because he was using Barbie doll which is bigger and don't have elbow joint, so he could put the bit deeper into the arm. Her hand was already chopped, so I needed to think about different solution. I decided to use strong magnets instead. I used Magic Sculpt, a 2-part epoxy clay to attach them to the shoulder and arm parts. And I messed up my work by trying the magnets before clay cured. Don't be me, work smart. The next day clay cured completely and this is how it looks. It kinda looks okay and it kinda does what it's supposed to do, but in reality it is too unstable to make it work. So time to take a hammer and scrap this idea. Magnets are too weak, it must have some support to work. When I was looking for the solutions, I checked one of the Lightful's video when she did exact type of joint I want to do in Monster High doll. She used for a rod the wire made from the paper clip. I sanded the axis of clay and even the surface using sanding paper and then I drilled the holes. I inserted the wire and as simple as it is, it works. So I gave her Braveheart treatment, sanded the cuts and off camera installed the wires in her limbs. Time to address this tiny hands situation. At first I started to sculpt her new hands out of cosplay, but then I noticed that Monster High G3 dolls have got hands which are to scale with Marinette's body. I have only one G3 Monster High doll, so I don't want to sacrifice her hands for this project, but they can serve me as template for the mold. I mixed silicone for mold making in 1:1 ratio and carefully poured it on the hands. On the next day, when mold was cured, I removed the template and poured to it epoxy resin mixed with pastel powder. However, hands didn't turn out very well. So I decided to prepare different mold with hands lying horizontally, so I should have easier access to each finger. By the way, if you ever wonder, kneaded eraser inhibits silicone curing. I poured the resin mixed with acrylic paint and used wire to spread it to all crevices and remove as much air bubbles as possible. I got this. It is fine. I cut the axes after pouring and joined. Next I cut her original hands, goodbye tiny hands, also shortening her arm because it was little too long. At first I was trying to reuse joint of casted arm, but it wasn't stiff enough to hold the arm, so I decided to use magnets. I pushed 2 mini magnets to each arm. Then I cut the worst and glued the magnet inside, keeping in mind proper polarity of the magnet so it will be functional, like this. Prototype worked nice, so I poured hands again. This time they lost less fingers. I filled the bubbles with cosplay and smoothed everything.
"2,000 years later."
In my prototype, hand was able only to rotate but not move up and down, and I thought that it is not enough. I decided to make a removable joint with Worbla and cosplay. First I prepared the worst holder, which keeps magnet with cosplay. I used paper to separate magnets so I can easily remove prepared part and build the worst with cosplay, which I cured with heat gun. Next, I sculpted hand part with wurst with cosplay. I found that it is more durable than one made from resin because cosplay is more flexible. I built wurst in 2 parts and I used Worbla as separator. Worbla will be later my actual joint, so I had to keep proper size. After curing, I cut Worbla into long ribbon and After curing, I cut Worbla into long ribbon and poked the hole through the wurst and joint areas. Then I installed the metal rod there and bam! Functional wurst joint! I shortened Worbla joint and attached it to the wurst holder with drop of UV resin. I used UV resin also to protect the metal rod. So this is how she looks. She's super poseable. However, I ended up preparing her off camera another set of hands because these wurst joints were standing up too much, especially when she was dressed up. Also, the transition between resin and cosplay is very visible after painting, despite of me trying to sand it as smooth as possible. And as you see, I abandoned poseable wurst idea and returned to my initial plan with just single magnet without poseable wurst joint. I learned on my reverse mermaid doll that sometimes it is better to do a step back for nicer final result. Time to make her ladybug costume. I mean this one. I decided to go with her updated suit, which debuted in beginning of season 4 because her iconic primary suit is so boring. I regret this decision later. After 2 prototypes, I ended up with decent pattern which I traced on red and black fabric. Using heat transfer vinyl, I made black lines on the suit and iconic black dots. It is very important to put them in the right place. Later I realized that dots I made are too big, so I prepared new ones. It turned out that Office Puncher is making perfect size dots. So I strategically dotted in black and red all fabric puzzles. Next, I glued the red front part to the black one with Uhu glue for the clear transition. Later, I sewed the front part and glued the seams to minimize the bulk. And now it's time for fun part. I realized that it is possible to put heat transfer vinyl on the seam to completely hide it. I may overuse a bit this property, but the effect is really cool. By this I placed all dots which overlaps the seams. And don't forget about the color. After sewing the collar, I glued the seams with Uhu glue. I sewed the darts on the sides and added the sleeves. Then I added the dots on the seams. And at the end I glued the legs and sewed them. As you see, I left these gigantic pieces of fabric hanging out from the legs and sleeves, and now it is time to utilize them. To make her shoes, I am reusing her original ballerina flat she came with. The idea is simple. After putting the shoes on her legs, I am gluing to it overhanging fabric with my extremely dry super glue, and then I am cutting the access, making nice seamless shoes. This trick was done multiple times by Hextian. To sell it even more, I cut new soils from thin craft foam and glued them to the shoes with hot glue. Painted black, they look like this. Before I do her gloves, I want to add one more detail to her suit. It is not very visible, but she has got this black banner with 2 red dots on the inner sides of her elbows. At first I wanted to skip this detail because it is in the most inconvenient place in whole suit, but my perfectionism didn't let me leave it. Luckily, heat transfer vinyl make it possible. Time for gloves. I made them out of cosplay the same way I did her hands. If you are watching my shorts videos, a couple weeks ago I posted a video where I sculpt Fink from Wednesday show using the same method. I started from making 4 sausages for each finger. Then I added small dots of clay for the knuckles. Later I covered palm area with the thin sheet of clay and smooth transitions with silicone tools. I was using all the time her hand as size reference and cutting the clay if needed. I added the magnet and used her shoe to make a scaled texture on gloves. Yes, continuity is little off. I made this step before gluing them to her costume, but I am showing it like this for easier flow. When gloves were ready, I hardened them using heat gun. I love this trick. I painted them first with white chalk paint as a base coat, followed by black acrylic paint. Now they are ready to glue to her costume. Very last step is attaching Velcro. By the way, off camera I top stitched the red panel on her torso because it turned out that the glue wasn't working very well here where fabric is too stretched. Luckily it's not so visible. The last detail is small ladybug symbol on her collar. For this I painted a rhinestone red with black dots and glued in place. And ladybug suit is done! Should I paint her face now? Nope, she still lacks some accessories. First, her yo-yo. I took 2-part epoxy clay, mixed equal parts of A and B components and sculpted 2 half spheres in size of her palm and left it to harden. In the meantime, I prepared a bunch of small half spheres. You guess what it will be? When they all cured, I sanded them a bit to remove fingerprints until they were still connected to the board. Then I took them out using knife, trying not to punch myself. I mixed fresh batch of epoxy sculpt and connected with it 2 big spheres, making a hamburger. It's supposed to be her yo-yo, but it is fine. Next, I mixed epoxy with water to make it more creamy and I used it to connect 2 smaller half spheres. And bam! It is macaron! Macaron? You know what! Time to address another elephant in the room, the demon Kwami. I am not sure what exactly makes her that creepy. Her balloon head, the antennas which looks like demon horns, or these soulless eyes. Anyway, she's also too big for my marionette, so I have to prepare a new one. I started from making small ball for her head. Then I used the side of my dotting tool to shape her head and mark the position of her eyes. Later I filled the holes with clay to make her eyeballs. made her smile with knife. Don't take this sentence out of context. Off camera, I made her body. I chose sitting pose because it is the most stable. My super glue is completely dried, so I decided to attach her head to the body with epoxy glue because it is very strong. When she cured, I painted her and Hamburger, I mean Yo-Yo, red and added black dots. And then I painted the tiniest face-up ever. I kept her super simple because she is too small for any details, but she turned out so cute. I covered her with mica powders to give her this magical glow. Last thing are her antennas. I didn't make them out of clay because they are too thin to sculpt. To make them I used doll lashes. They are brown, not red, but in this scale it doesn't make that much of a difference. I cut individual lash and glued it with some glue. Oh, she's so tiny and cute. There is something adorable with such small things. To turn this hamburger into Yo-Yo, I did a string using black wire. I twisted it for more stability. You can also use embroidery thread, but I wanted to have some posability. Lastly, I painted these things pastel rainbow. Delicious! I have only one Marinette doll and I don't have that much room for errors, so I decided to make a mold for her head. I mixed 2 parts silicone rubber for mold making in 1:1 ratio. I eyebaled the volumes and according to the instructions you shouldn't be doing it because these components should be measured by wave, but trust me, I am a scientist. After mixing it carefully, I submerged the head and waited overnight for it to cure. Off camera, I removed the head from the mold. It teared a little on the side because head was too close to corner of container, but it is not a problem. I just covered it with duct tape. During casting the mold, silicone got inside of the head, so I have to remove it. I made a big insertion in her head and took it out. And this is the creepiest thing I ever did in my doll customizer career. This silicone brain looks so funny with this little hair after routing holes.
What a joy to think of all we'll have in common. We'll have conversations worth having.
Time to cast this baby. For this I used 2-part epoxy resin mixed in 1:1 ratio. This time I semi-measured it using measurements on silicone beaker. I added some orange mica powder just to make it look nice. Demolded, it looks like this. I got air pockets on the ears, but this is not a problem for me because face is fine. Let's do her hair. I made them out of this navy acrylic yarn which I cut into pieces, detangled, knot on the metal stick and brush with pet brush. Standard thing. I darkened the roots using black Sharpie marker. According to the creator of the show, Marinette's hair is homage to the old comic book style that would use blue highlights on black hair. In early concept arts, her hair were even darker, but later during the development of the show, it was turned more into navy blue, with some studios making them more blue and other more black. I personally prefer the black one. I prepared her wig cap out of this stretchy fabric, which I covered with tons of Mod Podge. Remember to put kitchen foil on the head to protect it from glue. I almost forgot about it. When it dried, I cut it to the size and marked the part lines. I glued yarn to it, keeping inside empty to not overload head with hair. I will style her after the face-up. I am going to make her 2 wigs. One for her civilian form and second for her ladybug persona. And for the latter I am going to use not stained wefts to distinguish a bit her marinette and ladybug look, because creators of the show did a Sailor Moon job with hiding her identity. Okay, so maybe now it's time to paint her face. I can do this!
I can do it! I can do it! I can't do it! I can't do it! Fuck it up! Fuck it up!
You know what? Let's make her a miracle box. Yes, she doesn't need face, she needs her miracle box. First I made an egg from aluminium foil, which I covered with Sculpey Bake and Bond adhesive and covered it with Super Sculpey polymer clay. I smoothed it as much as I could and baked it according to the instructions. Next I sanded it and started to curve the center line, but then I checked the reference and realized that this is not how miracle box looks, so I sanded it down. Then I gave it white base color and painted it red. When I was adding black details, I realized that I messed up the shape. Box is not egg-shaped, but round, so off camera I did it again following the same steps. The mask was the main reason why I made this resin mold of her face. I knew that it will be many errors and tries since I want it to be removable. I started from making the base from Worbla thermoplastic, which I shaped on her face as close as possible. When it cooled down, I marked the mask and cut it out. I tried to install there a metal plate for magnet, but I wasn't able to shape it. Then I tried with thin wire, but it was too weak for the magnet which will sit in her head. I reshaped the mask again on her face, making sure that size and shape are correct, with idea to add layers of thread to keep it on her head. But it turned out that after hardening it just stayed on her face without any help. Physics? I guess? I am a biologist, physics is a witchcraft for me, so I just rolled with it, happy that I was so lucky that it just worked in such simple way. I started painting it from white base coat. Then I sketched the eyes with pencil and painted the mask red. As you see, I didn't cut eye holes because it is easier to paint her eyes than cutting such small holes in exact place. After putting a base color, I give it a thin coat of metallic red paint for this magical glow. Next, I painted black dots. Time for eyes. I started from shading her scleras with grey to make them more three-dimensional. Next, I painted her blue irises. I am going for very saturated color, even more than she had got in the show, because I really want them to pop. Also, similar to Wick, I want her ladybug eyes to be little different than her regular ones, since this is her magical form. As final touch, I framed her eyes with black and give her long eyelashes just like in the show, and give her small white cash lights. To protect my work, I covered the mask with Duraclear matte varnish and make her eyes shine with UV resin. I removed the mask from the mold and trimmed the sticking paint. Since I don't need access to her head anymore, I glued the head cap with hot glue, and it failed me, so I used Gorilla Glue, which later also fell out. Off camera I used fabric glue, and that was the one. I cannot neglect her face anymore, I needed to style her hair. After sealing her with Duraclear Ultra Matte Varnish, I first covered her with pastels similar to her skin tone for easier blending, and then I contoured her face and torso with cool tone of brown. To bring some life to her, I blushed her gently with magenta pastels on her cheeks, forehead and ears. I applied this color also to her lips, starting building the color. She's not wearing a lipstick, and for natural lips, pastels are the best. On the next layer I added some pale baby blue pastels on her template and around the eyes to build up more her cool undertone. Also, I built up more color of her lips, removing all excess of pastels with kneaded eraser. Next, I took my watercolor pencils and add some lip wrinkles to her lips. I add also some details to her ears and some highlights. I am giving her very settled skin details. In some episodes it is shown that she has got freckles. They are not that visible like Kagami's, but still, they are there. I started to fill her eyes with watercolor pencils, but quickly switched to the acrylic paints. Then I struggled with her eyebrows. I should stop here. After adding few more details, I moved to her eyes. As I mentioned, I wanted to use different shade of blue on her eyes than the one I used on her mask. I custom mixed this muted blue color, very similar to the eye color in the show, and started to paint. I was very intimidated with doing her face up because face is the most important part of the doll, especially when it is established character like her. If I made her face wrong, all hard work I put on her clothes, her suit, accessories and body mods doesn't matter anymore because she is not looking like herself. However, it turned out to be easier than I thought. Mold was guiding me all the time and simplistic style of the show worked in my favor. Usually I am painting details like waterline and tear ducts, and here I didn't have to bother about such things. I just had to keep everything even and clean, taking my time for blending the colors for smooth transitions, and watching like with each brush stroke she resembles herself more and more. Of course, lashes were problematic. They are always my nemesis. I am Team Falsies girl. Wow. To ci ona. Totalnie ona. And this is how she looks with her hair. Oh my god, she looks amazing. I was never so proud of my work before. Time to style her hair. I know that she looks incredible with these long locks and she should wear this in the show, but I had to cut it. I put her hair into sections and put them into pigtails with black wire. Wire is better for doll hair styling than elastic because it stays in place and doesn't stretch over time. For her bangs, I tried to feather them and cut them to size, but I failed. She looks more like the So Clean girl they introduced in season 5. I removed the bangs and started again, this time styling the hair while gluing them. I was trying not to add too much wefts, because previously her head was overloaded with hair and it was a problem during the styling. For clean part line, I glued the hair in the opposite direction and flipped it to the front. I styled her hair using water and later fixed it with hairspray. I am reusing the thread elastics she came with. Off camera I made her wig for her ladybug costume the same way, but with slightly long pigtails. I spent so much time on her, so I decided to give her nice underwear to make her more finished. I almost forgot about the most important accessory, her Miraculous, the ladybug earrings. She will need 2 pairs, the normal one she wears as ladybug and so-called camouflaged form, which she wears as Marinette. Earrings she came with supposed to be in camouflage form, but sculpting is wrong. They supposed to look just like black blank studs, but this has got sculpted dots on them. So I used them for the ladybug ones, and the other pair I made with wood sticks and rhinestones. To keep all her accessories in place, I got this small box which I repainted in Lucky Charm pattern. And with that, I think we are done.
It's done. Yes, Mr. Frodo. It's over now.
I am beyond happy that I can finally show her to you. She took me way longer than any other of my doll projects. I started her in November and finished in the end of March. I put a lot hard time and hard work on her, and it all paid off because she looks exactly like in the show, but also have got some of my touch. By the way, over time her mask lost this magical connection to her face, so I had to fix it with kneaded eraser, and it works. It is one of these very personal projects. I wanted to prepare this doll for a long time because Miraculous Ladybug is one of my favorite shows and I am often seeing myself in Marinette, so I wanted to give her justice. It wasn't easy, I had many downfalls, but I am glad that I finally can put her on my shelf and move to the next project. I would love to repaint more Miraculous dolls in the future. I don't know what you think, but for me, Agent desperately needs some help. What do you think about her? It was worth to wait? Should I combine part 1 and part 2 into one video? Let me know in the comments. And this is all for today. See you next time. Bye!